Now, even Realities, the three-year-old Shenzhen firm founded by former Apple engineers, has raised $150 million in a pre-Series B round led by Meituan, with prior backer Tencent following at a valuation of roughly $1 billion. The reflexive framing out here, ex-Apple team, camera-free design, another challenger to Meta, is accurate and besides the point. The facts worth anchoring out here are narrow. The round is led by Meituan, a local services and delivery platform, with Tencent participating. Earlier backers are mostly by-profile China names including Hillhouse, Sequoia China, and Northern Light alongside CBH, Monolith, and CBC. The flagship product, that is even G2, launched last November, camera-free with micro-LED heads-up display projected into the lens and a companion ring for control. On economics, the frames retail nearly at $599 with prescription lenses, or the ring pushing the average order to roughly $1,000. On geography, more than half of the users and around 80% of the developer base sit in the United States. The glasses are manufactured across several Chinese factories and are not sold in China at all. Hold these all as hard facts. Much of the rest of the company's narrative is self-reported and is treated with appropriate discount in the final section. Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel and welcome back to the Capital Insight series. Our Capital Insight series sits within our Fundamentals through the Noise series here at Punjab Capital Research. And today for this video, we wanted to shift back to wearables. We've already run a couple of videos on wearables and hope you've got those videos. Today we wanted to focus on the face wearables. And when we are talking about face wearables, what we wanted to share with you is the two theories of face wearables. Meituan, even Realities, and how the post-smartphone interface is getting funded. This is where $150 million round at a $1 billion valuation, which actually is the least interesting fact about even Realities. Read together, the company's cap table and its product philosophy map to competing theories of how the post-smartphone interface is getting built and who is willing to pay for it. Let's first talk about the round and what the headline bears. Now, even Realities, the three-year-old Shenzhen firm founded by former Apple engineers, has raised $150 million in a pre-Series B round led by Meituan, with prior backer Tencent following at a valuation of roughly $1 billion. The reflexive framing out here, ex-Apple team, camera-free design, another challenger to Meta, is accurate and besides the point. There are two questions that actually matter for an allocator. First and foremost, who is underwriting the interface layer that will sit between the user and machine intelligence and why? And secondly, which theory of how a face one device wins does this round validate? The answer to the first is Chinese patent capital acting on a specific doctrine. And the answer to the second question exposes a fault line that runs unexpectedly straight through the luxury eyewear business. The facts worth anchoring out here are narrow. The round is led by Meituan, a local services and delivery platform, with Tencent participating. Earlier backers are mostly by-profile China names including Hillhouse, Sequoia China, and Northern Light alongside CBH, Monolith, and CBC. The flagship product, that is even G2, launched last November, camera-free with micro-LED heads-up display projected into the lens and a companion ring for control. On economics, the frames retail nearly at $599 with prescription lenses, or the ring pushing the average order to roughly $1,000. On geography, more than half of the users and around 80% of the developer base sit in the United States. The glasses are manufactured across several Chinese factories and are not sold in China at all. Hold these all as hard facts. Much of the rest of the company's narrative is self-reported and is treated with appropriate discount in the final section. Next, let's talk about the strategic capital readout here. Why Meituan? Now, Meituan is not a natural consumer hardware investor, and that is precisely why its position as lead is the signal rather than the noise. Over the past several years, Meituan has become arguably China's most active hard technology investor, operating an explicit physical AI doctrine. Its CEO Wang Zheng frames the company's posture as an attack and not defend one. The portfolio is the evidence out here. Humanoid robot maker Unitree, Modern Labs Bifu, which is now public, Moonshot Scheme, LiDAR supplier Visay, and a large in-house delivery drone fleet, and its own trillion-parameter long-cat model trained and served on domestic compute. Also noteworthy out here is that the group R&D ran roughly 26 billion renminbi in 2025. Now, this is a platform that is systematically acquiring the sensing, the compute, and the actuation layers of the physical world. Now, against that particular backdrop, glasses are not a flying. A Meta One partner framed the bet in generational terms. The AI era demands an interface beyond the smartphone, and glasses offer continuous contextual feedback without interrupting daily life. For a company whose entire business is mediating real world commerce, where you are, what surrounds you, and what you might want next, a stake in always one surface between the user and the AI is a stake in the future distribution and context layer of that particular business. And that exactly is what the on-face compute layer is. Not a screen that you pick up, but a persistent sensing and display membrane through which AI reads the world. Tencent's participation runs with different direction, a super app and content ecosystem whose distribution logic has always been about owning the surface where the attention and transactions meet. We would also like to share one particular caveat against overrating this particular strategy because Meituan also books large fair value gains on frontier bets. Its default stake alone generated a multi-billion yuan mark, so some portion of that glasses position is simply exposure to a fast compounding category. But the stated use of proceeds, next generation platform, deeper AI integration, global scale, and the partner's interface framing points to strategic position in the interface level and not a passive financial one. Now, there are two theories that are emerging out here. Strip away the funding noise, and the category is resolving into two distinct theories of how a face-worn AI device wins, and more to the point for the capital allocator. Two distinct capital formation and margin models are there. Model A, the platform rents the eyewear, and Model B, the eyewear object comes first. Let's talk about Model A first. In the Model A, we have Meta's approach to buy legitimacy and distribution from the incumbent. It has taken just under 3% stake in Essilor Luxottica worth roughly 3.5 billion, with reporting that it may climb towards 5% and sells camera-first content capture devices at mass premium prices. Ray-Ban Meta at around $299, Oakley Meta at around $499, and a distribution surface for its AI, its apps, and eventually its advertising. Commercially, it has worked. Essilor Luxottica's wearables line contributed more than 4 percentage points of nearly 12% group revenue in the recent quarter, and Google is running the same playbook through Warby Parker. The structural weakness out here is divided control. Meta and Essilor Luxottica have been reported working through friction over pricing and strategy. The scene that opens when the technology platforms own software and the eyewear house owns the object. And this brings us to the Model 2, wherein the eyewear object comes first. Even inverts the sequence. Rather than a technology company renting eyewear credibility, it built eyewear DNA into its founding team. And here, the specific pedigree matters. Two co-founders came from Lindbergh, the Danish house now owned by Kering Eyewear. School has made to order titanium frames, a precious line in 18-karat gold and diamonds, more than 100 international design awards. We have already done a specific video on Kering Eyewear and Lindbergh. Do check out that video. Now, this is not generic hardware experience as we have shared in that video also. It is the apex of eyewear and craft where frame is a personalized luxury object. Now that DNA maps directly onto Even's product logic, prescription integrated from the start rather than bolted on, all-day wearability as the prime specification, an average order of nearly $1,000, and privacy reframed as discretion. The camera-free design read as a restraint and taste, a luxury attribute rather than merely a compliance posture. The distinction is not cosmetic, it's a different business. Model A, that is Meta and Google, is a volume and platform play. Sell the hardware near cost and monetize the services, data, and advertising that flow across it, with eyewear as a distribution channel. Contrast this to Model B, which is a premium hardware play. On the margin on the object itself, accept a smaller addressable base and defend it with brand, craft, and fit. The two imply different customers, different unit economics, different investors, and different exits. The even round out here that we are talking about is a bet by strategic Chinese platform capital, and the second model has been underpriced by a market that is fixated on the first. And this brings us to the straddle, the firm that doesn't really sit anywhere. The most interesting thing on Even's balance sheet is not the number, it's the geography. The capital is Chinese, the manufacturing is Chinese, but the market is deliberately Western and allied. And this is followed by Japan, Korea, the Middle East, and Europe. Roughly 80% of the developer base sits in the United States, and the company does not sell in China at all. This inverts the usual decoupling narrative in which Chinese firms are pushed out of Western markets. Here is a Chinese-funded, Chinese-built firm that is engineered from the inception to live in the Western end markets. The camera-free EU privacy standard architecture is where this becomes a strategy rather than a code. A device with no outward-facing camera and data infrastructure built to Europe standards is sellable precisely in the jurisdictions where camera-first devices invite regulatory and social friction. Privacy in this reading is a scalability mode for a China-linked hardware firm that needs a Western trust, not a design ethic. Now, whether that mode proves durable or is it simply the cheapest available differentiation until larger players copy it is the open question out here. And for the bifurcation thread, this is the cleanest data point. The capital for a frontier consumer AI hardware category is forming inside a Chinese platform ecosystem, even as the addressable market for the category sits almost entirely outside it. Capital and demand are decoupling along different lines than the policy conversation assumes. And let's wrap up this video with positioning view and what would move it. In the positioning view, read the even round less as smart glass financing and more as Chinese platform capital pricing, the on-face interface, with the luxury privacy access, not the camera as a differentiator that is worth tracking out here. The display-first eyewear object-first model is distinct and arguably underpriced alternative to the camera-first platform play. And its durability turns on whether the premium average order value survives price competition and whether the privacy stays a moat rather than a copyable feature. And add to this the comparative map. Even's $1 billion valuation places it mid-pack amongst the Chinese challengers, below Rocket and well above the TCL incubated Raineo, in a category that is itself inflicting hard. The industry shipments rose sharply year-on-year in the first quarter to well over 2 million units and with Meta holding roughly 70% of the share. Even is a differentiated niche occupant, not a share leader, which is consistent with and not contrary to the Model B thesis. And we'll leave you with the snapshot of the player, the valuation, and the model position within the face variables. That's all that we have for you in this episode. Stay tuned in for the next one.